It was one of those perfect afternoons where nothing should have gone wrong. The sun shimmered on Cedar Lake, casting golden streaks across the water. A soft breeze drifted through the open window as I sat at my dining table, nursing a cup of coffee and trying to finish up work. My house was quiet except for the soft hum of the ceiling fan overhead. I love this house, my little slice of peace after years of saving up. Sitting right on the edge of the lake, it felt like my own piece of heaven. I'd installed a gate at the back of the property a few months ago after noticing beer cans and fast food wrappers left on my lawn. Some people had been cutting through the yard to reach the lake, and I'd had enough. The doorbell rang, shattering the peace. I frowned, glancing at the clock. 2:13 p.m. I wasn't expecting anyone. Through the peephole, I saw Jennifer Wilson standing on the porch. Her arms were crossed tightly over her chest, and her mouth was set in that thin line she always wore when she wasn't getting her way. Her blonde bob was perfectly styled, and a pearl necklace gleamed in the afternoon light. Jennifer was the president of Maple Springs HOA, and if you lived in this neighborhood, you knew what that meant. She didn't just run the HOA, she ruled it. Taking a deep breath, I opened the door. "Jennifer," I said, trying to sound polite, "what can I do for you?" Her smile was thin and tight. "We need to talk about your gate." I felt my stomach tighten. "My gate?" She nodded. "The board had an emergency meeting last night." Her voice was crisp, like she was reading a prepared statement. "You blocked the lake access path. That path has been used by the community for years." My brow furrowed. "Jennifer, that path is on my property. I checked the deed when I bought the house." Jennifer's smile didn't budge. "That's why I'm here." Her eyes sharpened. "The board voted unanimously. You need to provide us with a key to your gate. Immediately." I blinked. "You want a key? To my property?" "Yes." Her tone was flat, businesslike. "Homeowners are complaining that they have to walk an extra 10 minutes to reach the lake." I hesitated. "Jennifer, I installed that gate because people were leaving trash in my yard. I'm sorry if it's inconvenient, but it's private property." Her eyes darkened. "The HOA has ways of dealing with these situations," she said softly. "David Thompson fought us over his fence last year. He ended up with over $100,000 in fines and a lien on his house. You don't want to make this difficult for yourself." A chill swept over me. That wasn't a warning. It was a threat. "I think we're done here," I said evenly. "If the HOA wants to pursue this, they can talk to my lawyer." Her smile dropped completely. "Suit yourself," she said, spinning on her heel and striding down the path. I closed the door with shaking hands. This was about more than a gate. After Jennifer left, I sat down and called my lawyer, Mark Simmons. "She wants a key?" Mark repeated, his voice sharp with disbelief. "Yeah, the whole board apparently voted on it." "Did you check property deed?" "Yes." I pulled out the file from my desk. "It's clearly marked as private property." "Good," Mark said. "Then you're on solid ground legally. But document everything from now on. If they push this, we'll need proof." I hung up, but my hands were still shaking. That evening, I pulled out the survey map and the property deed. I laid them on the table, tracing the lines with my finger. My property extended to the lake. No easement, no shared access. I was in the right, but that didn't mean Jennifer wouldn't try to make life difficult. 2 days later, a notice appeared on my mailbox. "Violation. Hedge height exceeds community guidelines. $100 daily fine until resolved." I stared at it in disbelief. My hedge was trimmed, neatly even. I took a picture and sent it to Mark. The next day brought another violation notice. "Violation. Improper mailbox design." Then another. "Violation. Unapproved gate installation." They were coming after me, one paper cut at a time. On Saturday morning, I was pulling weeds from the garden when Jennifer showed up at the end of the driveway. She wasn't alone. Robert Davis, the HOA treasurer, stood beside her. His round glasses glinted in the sun, and his arms were crossed like a bodyguard. "Morning." Jennifer called sweetly. I sighed and stood. "Morning." Jennifer's smile sharpened. "We just wanted to give you another chance to hand over that key. I wiped the dirt off my hands. Jennifer, I'm not giving you a key to my property. Robert stepped forward. You might want to reconsider. I narrowed my eyes. Or what? Jennifer's smile didn't waver. Homeowners who don't cooperate with the board tend to face difficulties. My heart thudded painfully in my chest. Are you threatening me? Of course not, Jennifer said smoothly. We're just trying to maintain harmony. They left without another word. My hands were still shaking when I went inside. That night, my phone buzzed at 11:30 p.m. I sat up, heart racing. Security alert. I opened the app and froze. 3 figures stood at my back gate. Jennifer, Robert, Michael Thompson, the facility's manager. Robert was holding something that glinted under the security light. A bolt cutter. I hit record and dialed 911. There are people trying to break into my property. By the time I pulled on a sweatshirt and ran downstairs, the police were already there. Officer James stood at the back gate, flashlight in hand. I showed him the footage. Jennifer's face was clear as day. Officer James frowned. This is criminal trespassing. A few minutes later, Jennifer's SUV pulled up. Jennifer stepped out, her smile perfectly in place. We were just checking on community property. This is private property, Officer James said calmly, and you were caught on video attempting to damage the lock. Jennifer's smile tightened. This isn't over. The next morning, my phone lit up with messages. Emergency HOA meeting tonight. Homeowner accused of blocking lake access. I opened the community app. Jennifer had posted a notice with a photo of my gate. The caption accused me of selfishly cutting off a historic community path. I called Mark. They're turning the whole neighborhood against me. Good, Mark said. It means they're scared. At 7 p.m., I walked into the HOA meeting with Mark. The room went quiet. Jennifer stood at the podium. This is a private meeting, she said coolly. Mark smiled. My client is a homeowner. He has every right to be here. Officer James entered the room behind us. Jennifer's smile finally dropped, and for the first time I realized I might actually win this fight. The next morning, I opened my front door and sighed when I saw the white envelope tucked into my mailbox. Another one. I peeled it open right there on the porch. Violation notice. Excessive water usage. $100 daily fine until resolved. I frowned. My sprinklers ran on a timer twice a week. That wasn't excessive. I stuffed the notice into my back pocket and opened the second envelope. Violation notice. Unapproved garden border. $100 daily fine. Seriously? The border had been there for a year. Jennifer had even approved it. I let out a shaky breath and walked toward the house when I spotted Grace, my elderly neighbor, watering her plants across the street. You okay, dear? She called out, adjusting her wide-brimmed sun hat. I crossed the street, still holding the notices. Not really. I handed them to her. Grace pulled out her reading glasses and peered at them, her mouth pressed into a thin line. They did this to the Petersons a few years ago, she said. Kept sending fines until they packed up and left. Why? I asked. Because the Petersons' house sat on a double lot. Grace said quietly. Jennifer's friend, a developer, bought it and turned it into 3 smaller homes. My stomach dropped. You think that's what they're trying to do? Grace's eyes were sharp. Wouldn't be the first time. I looked back toward my house, a cold wave washing over me. This wasn't about a gate anymore. That night, I got another violation email. Violation notice. Improper mailbox height. $100 daily fine. I stared at the screen and clenched my jaw. Enough. I grabbed my phone and called Mark. They're piling on the fines, I said the moment he answered. Good, Mark said calmly. Document everything. Take pictures. If this escalates, we'll have enough to go after them for harassment. I hung up and sat on the couch, my heart hammering in my chest. Jennifer wasn't backing down. Neither was I. The next morning, I woke up to 20 unread messages on my phone. My heart skipped as I scrolled through them. Why are you blocking the lake? Selfish much. Just give them the key. My hands tightened around the phone. Confused, I opened the Maple Spring Community app and my stomach sank. At the top of the feed was a picture of my gate. The caption read, "Homeowner blocks historic lake access. Neighborhood values at risk." Below were over 50 comments, and climbing. Unbelievable. Who does this guy think he is? Entitled much? I rubbed my hand over my mouth. My heart hammered painfully against my ribs. A call came through from Grace. "Did you see it?" she asked, her voice low. "Oh, yeah. They're turning the whole neighborhood against you," she said. I stood up and started pacing the room. "It's working. There's an emergency HOA meeting tonight," Grace said. "Jennifer's calling for a vote." I stopped pacing. "A vote on what?" "I don't know," Grace said, "but people are angry. You should be prepared." I closed my eyes and took a shaky breath. "They want me gone," I said quietly. "Yes," Grace said, "but they don't know who they're dealing with." That afternoon, I drove to the county clerk's office. The woman behind the desk smiled politely. "How can I help you?" "I need a copy of my property deed," I said. "Maple Springs HOA issue." Her expression shifted, knowing. "You're not the first," she said, standing up. My eyebrows lifted. "What do you mean?" She sighed. "They've been trying to claim lakefront properties for years. In 2018, they even tried to alter the county zoning maps to make certain private lots community access points." "What happened?" "Denied," she said, handing me a stack of papers. "Your property line is here." She pointed to a bold black line that extended all the way to the lake. "No easement. No right of way." My breath came easier as I flipped through the papers. "So I'm right." "You're more than right," she said. "This is bulletproof." I thanked her and walked out, feeling steadier than I had in days. My phone buzzed. "Grace, can you come over?" she said. "I think I have something you'll want to see." 15 minutes later, I was sitting at Grace's kitchen table as she slid her phone toward me. "I keep a bird-watching camera out back," she said. "It picked up something interesting." I hit play. On the screen, I saw Jennifer, Robert, and Michael standing at my gate. Robert was holding a bolt cutter. My jaw tightened. They broke my lock. "In broad daylight," Grace said. "Want me to send this to the police?" My hand tightened around the phone. "Yes." That night, Mark and I stood outside the Maple Springs clubhouse. "You ready?" Mark asked. "I don't know. I admit it, but let's do this." We walked into the room, and the noise immediately died down. Over 50 neighbors were seated in rows of folding chairs. Jennifer stood at the podium, arms crossed. "This is a private meeting," Jennifer said coolly. Mark smiled. "My client is a homeowner. He has a right to be here." Jennifer's eyes narrowed. "We're here to discuss a violation of community access," Jennifer began. Mark held up the property deed. "Actually, this property is private." Murmurs spread through the room. A man in the back stood up. "Jennifer, you said that path belonged to community." Jennifer's smile tightened. "It's been used for decades." "Without an easement, there's no legal claim," Mark said. Jennifer's jaw clenched. At that moment, the door opened. Officer James stepped in. "Jennifer Wilson," he said calmly, "we need to speak with you about an incident involving property destruction." Jennifer's face paled. Jennifer froze as Officer James stepped forward. "We have security footage," he said, "and a witness." Grace stood up from the second row, chin held high. "I saw them cut the lock. I have the video." Gasps rippled through the room. Jennifer's mouth opened and closed. Officer James held up a plastic evidence bag containing the broken pieces of my lock. "This is criminal trespassing," he said. "We need you to come with us." Jennifer's face twisted into a hard smile. "You can't be serious." Officer James raised an eyebrow. "Try me." Jennifer stood stiffly as Robert and Michael followed her toward the door. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. The evening after the HOA meeting, I sat on my porch with Grace, sipping a glass of iced tea. The neighborhood was quiet except for the distant sound of crickets. The adrenaline from the meeting had worn off, leaving behind a strange emptiness. Grace sat beside me, clutching a small stack of papers in her lap. Her hands trembled slightly as she passed them to me. "Take a look at this," she said. I unfolded the papers and scanned the neatly typed rows of numbers. My brow furrowed as I reached line item 4. Lake Access Maintenance, $5,000. I shook my head. Lake Access Maintenance? They've never maintained the path. It's on my property. That's the thing, Grace said, her eyes sharp. They've been charging the HOA for maintenance, but no one's ever seen them do a thing. I flipped through the records. The payments had been happening every quarter for the past 5 years. Where's the money going? I asked. Grace leaned closer and tapped the payment address at the bottom of the page. Jennifer Wilson's home address. My heart skipped. You gotta be kidding me. Grace shook her head. It gets better. She handed me a second sheet, a payment log. Lakeside Maintenance, LLC? I read. Who owns that? No official website. No listed employees. Grace said. But the business registration? It's in Jennifer's name. I rubbed my hand over my mouth. This is fraud. Grace's mouth pressed into a tight line. She's been stealing from the HOA for years. I sat back, stunned. If this is true, Jennifer isn't just breaking HOA rules. She's committing a crime. Grace's gaze sharpened. And that means it's time to call the police. The next morning, I sat in Mark's office, the papers spread out across his desk. He leaned back in his chair, adjusting his glasses as he reviewed them. This is substantial, Mark said, flipping through the pages. For her? I asked. For all of them, Mark replied. He tapped one of the documents. Robert and Michael both signed off on these payments. That makes them accessories. I exhaled sharply. How much money are we talking about? Mark's eyes darkened. Over $125,000. My mouth went dry. If we bring this to the district attorney, Mark continued, they'll have enough for a criminal case. This is fraud, potentially embezzlement. What's the next step? I asked. We take it to the authorities. That afternoon, Officer James showed up at my house. I heard you have something for me, he said, his usual calm expression a little sharper. I handed him the folder. It's all there, payments, receipts, addresses. James flipped through the papers, his brow furrowing. Lakeside Maintenance, LLC, he muttered. Never heard of them. That's because it's not real, I said. The address leads to Jennifer's house. James looked up at me. You're telling me Jennifer had been funneling HOA funds into a fake company? I nodded. James let out a low whistle. Well, that changes things. What happens now? He closed the folder and gave me a faint smile. Now, we get a search warrant. 3 days later, the neighborhood woke up to flashing blue and red lights. I stood at my front window, heart thudding, as 3 police cars pulled up in front of Jennifer's house. Jennifer stood on her front porch, wearing a silk robe and clutching a cup of coffee like this was any other morning. But her face was tight. Officer James approached her calmly. Jennifer Wilson, we have a warrant to search your property. Jennifer's smile didn't budge. This is a mistake. James nodded toward the officers behind him. We'll see. 2 officers disappeared into the house. Moments later, they came back carrying boxes of files and hard drives. Jennifer's smile finally faltered. Then she saw me standing in my driveway. Her eyes narrowed. You did this, she mouthed. I smiled faintly. Officer James stepped toward her again. Jennifer Wilson, you're under arrest for suspicion of embezzlement and fraud. Jennifer's jaw tightened. You're making a mistake. James started reading her rights. Her hands curled into fists at her sides. From a corner of my eye, I saw Robert and Michael watching from their driveways, their faces pale. You might want to get lawyers, I called out. Robert's mouth thinned. This isn't over. I smiled. Yeah, it kind of is. As Jennifer was led toward the squad car, her mask finally cracked. For the first time, she looked scared. A week later, the HOA held an emergency meeting to elect a new board. The community center was packed, but the mood was different this time. Lighter, hopeful. Grace sat beside me, clutching her purse. Her knuckles were white. I don't know about this, she whispered. You've got this, I said. They trust you. Thomas, the quiet accountant who lived down the street, stood up. I'd like to nominate Grace Mitchell for the HOA board, he said. Grace's eyes widened. Thomas smiled. She's lived here longer than most of us, and she's the one who helped uncover the truth. If anyone deserves to represent this community, it's Grace. Several people clapped. Then more joined in. Grace stood slowly, her hands trembling. I don't know what to say. Say yes, I whispered. Her lips parted. Yes, I'd be honored. The vote was unanimous. After the meeting, Grace turned to me, her eyes glassy with emotion. I wouldn't have done this without you. You did it, I said. I just helped. She squeezed my hand. For the first time in months, I felt like I belonged here. A month later, I was sitting on my back deck, overlooking the lake. The new gate stood exactly where it belonged, secure and private. But just beyond it, I could see the construction site where the new lake access path was being built. Grace had pushed it through the board. A proper path leading to the lake, open to everyone. It was exactly how it should have been from the start. My phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. Recovered funds came through, 60% of the stolen money. Grace is proposing it go toward a new park. Thoughts? I smiled. Sounds perfect. A knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. Grace stood there, holding a basket of muffins. Board meeting prep? She said, handing me the basket. I laughed. You're really getting into this HOA thing, huh? Grace smiled. It's different now. I sat down at the table as Grace spread out the agenda. You ever find out why Jennifer wanted your property so badly? She asked. Yeah, I said. Her friend, the developer, had plans for this lot. If I'd given up the gate, they could have claimed community access and rezoned it for development. Grace shook her head. Greedy? I glanced toward the lake. The sun was setting, the water glittering under the fading light. Grace followed my gaze. New beginnings, she said softly. Yeah, I said. New beginnings. That night, as I sat on the deck, I finally felt at peace. Jennifer was gone. The HOA was in better hands. And for the first time in a long time, Cedar Lake felt like home again.